Japan Station is made possible in part by Patreon support. If you would like to make sure that I can keep bringing you more content like this, then head on over to japankyo.com/Patreon and sign up for as little as $1 a month. Welcome to Japan Station, a production of japankyo.com. I'm your host, Tony Vega. So today is going to be a little bit different from the usual format because there's no guest today. It's just going to be me, and I'm going to be talking about my most recent trip to Japan. If you're interested in that, well, please stay around to the very end. I'm just going to be keeping it kind of loose today, just kind of reflecting on some of the things that I did and saw while I was there. Hopefully you'll find it enjoyable, especially if you're thinking of going to Japan, or maybe you've been there already and you just, I don't know, you like to hear people talk about Japan. I guess that's why you'd be here anyway, right? Because that's what this podcast is kind of about anyway. But yeah, normally I would interview someone. So if you are interested in more content like that, where I talk to experts and interesting people doing interesting things in Japan, then make sure to subscribe just in case, this might be somebody's first episode. Hit that subscribe button in your podcast app of choice. And by the way, you can follow on Twitter and Facebook at Japankyo News. But to be perfectly honest, I mainly stick to Twitter. So if you are on Twitter, then go over to at Japankyo News and give me a follow over there. I would greatly appreciate that. So let's get into it. So I just got back right at the end of June of 2023, and I was there for about 3 weeks. And the title of this episode is going to be something like Go to Japan Right Now. And why do I say that? Well, there's a lot of reasons why I could make a lot of arguments for that. It's a fun place. There's a lot to see and do, and blah blah blah, good food, etc., etc. And I'll discuss some of that in a moment. But really, to be perfectly honest, the main reason why I'm saying that at this exact moment is the exchange rate. It is just so good for people with dollars. So it's something like 30% more bang for your buck, so to speak. What I mean is, like, here's an example, right? So a few days before I left Japan, I was doing some shopping. I had dollars. I needed to get it into yen. So I exchanged it at one of these kiosks. I got $300, put it in the thing, and I got, I think, a little bit more than 42,000 yen in return. All right. So that's crazy. It's a huge change, right? That's more than 30% in terms of purchasing power. For a while, the yen was about 100 yen to $1. And a little while before that, the yen was like quite strong. So there was a time when the yen was like, I don't know, you got $1.10 for like 100 yen. So in terms of buying power, right now, the dollar is just so strong compared to the yen. And you just feel it everywhere, because like when you go to the restaurant and let's just say a meal for two, like I remember this was maybe the day before I left, a meal for two at a nice restaurant, like it was a teishoku, like, kind of a set meal kind of place, but it was like a nice place. It cost us like 2,800 yen. So you might say, oh, that's kind of like $30, but no, in reality, that's more like $20 in terms of pure buying power, relatively speaking to the dollar. I know, I think you guys know what I mean. If you've been to Japan, it always feels better to get more yen for your dollars, right? Because the prices in Japan generally don't go up that much, but I know there's been inflation and things like eggs and some, basic stuff has gone up and prices have gone up. But still, compared to the US and, many places in the US, I would say, maybe not every single place, but also compared to Hawaii, where I live, sometimes it was almost like half off for like food and items. It was mainly with foods, like, clothes would depend. I bought a pair of sneakers and it was maybe like $15 cheaper than the exact same model in the US. Between the exchange rate and then on top of that, the fact that, it might be a little bit cheaper in Japan, depending on what it is that you buy. Sometimes these things can be about 50% off what you would pay in the US. So it's just such a good deal. I mean, well, if you're going to travel in July, that is kind of peak season. Well, it is peak season. So you're going to lose some of those savings if you decide to buy a ticket all of a sudden after listening to this episode. But nevertheless, if you're going to be traveling in the next few months, at least, I don't think this cheap yen is going to be resolving itself overnight. So I think there's still a good amount of time for you to take advantage of this. But yeah, if you're going to be traveling in the next few months, I think you're really gonna love it. And if you like to eat, going to sushi or whatever it is, takoyaki, tonkatsu, whatever it is, you want to just eat till your heart's content, it will cost you so much less than it would have like 5 years ago when the yen was much stronger. So for me, it was just every single day I was almost in disbelief, going like, wait, that's how much this costs? Or like I would exchange money and I go like, wait, that's how much yen I just got for this? Like, okay, I wasn't going to buy sneakers, but I'll buy some sneakers for this. Like, I really did not buy that much stuff while I was in Japan, but because the exchange rate and the prices were so good, I ended up buying the aforementioned pair of sneakers. I was convinced, like, okay, I guess I'll get a pair of sneakers. But I ate so much, and the food was, of course, it's always good. It's harder to find a really bad restaurant in Japan than it is to I mean, yeah, there are some scammy kind of places, but for the most part, most places are quite good. So yeah, that would be the number one reason why I would say go to Japan right now. It is so cheap for people with dollars. So if you're not earning dollars, I can't say exactly how the exchange rate goes for you, but yeah, for anybody in the US earning dollars, now is just such a good time to go. Aside from that, yeah, this was hardly my first time in Japan. I've lived there for a number of years, and even when I wasn't living there, I was visiting every year until Corona. So, I've been to, I would say, most places in Japan, not everywhere. Most. I would say the majority of prefectures, probably, well over half, probably. But I'm estimating there. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But yeah, I've been around Japan a lot, and I've been there many, many times. So I didn't really go to any new places this time around. I stayed in Fukuoka mainly, but I also passed by Sapporo, my second time in Sapporo. And then I passed by Tokyo too, just to do a couple things that I had to do. And maybe I'll talk more about that in a separate episode. But yeah, in Fukuoka, I was mainly just eating and doing some shopping. I love Fukuoka. It's a great place, and I have a place to stay there. So that often is in recent years, that has been my kind of base. And if you do have a place to stay, that's another great way to save money, because, hotels do, even if it is cheap, it does add up. And yeah, I would just eat a lot in Fukuoka. There aren't that many big kind of touristic sites in Fukuoka, to be perfectly honest. Like there's a few, there's Dazaifu, and there's a few other places. I think Sasaguri, I think, is the name of the place, where they have this temple of a Buddha lying down, and you can walk through it. I was there a few years ago, maybe like 4 years ago. Nice place. I would recommend it if you're in the area. That's a little bit away from Fukuoka city proper, but really not far at all. And then, once you're in Fukuoka, you can travel to other places around Kyushu quite easily. So, from Fukuoka in the past, I've traveled to Nagasaki, to Kumamoto, to Oita, to all these other places. So Fukuoka can be a great hub. And, the bullet train passes through there. So I do recommend going to Fukuoka, but it may be best to treat it a little bit as a kind of shopping center and, kind of base of operations. You get there and then you kind of head on out to other places from there, because within Fukuoka city proper, there aren't that many, famous like touristic sites. It's a little bit more mellow, but the food is quite good. There's a lot of good restaurants, and the night district there, Nakasu, if you're interested in that sort of thing, you can go check that out as well. So went over to Sapporo for a few days, and of course ate quite a bit there. Went to the fish market, the Jogai Ichiba, I think is what it's called, if I remember correctly. Great food there. Had some scallops, hotate, and like a kaisen don, what's it called? Like a donburi, like a rice bowl with like fresh seafood and crab and shrimp. Just wonderful stuff, and then kind of went around and ate a bunch of stuff. Had the yubari melon, and just ate way too much, but the food was wonderful. The most notable things that I did this time around in Sapporo, though, would probably be actually, it was outside of Sapporo. We took a bus tour up to the Asahikawa Dobutsuin, the zoo up there. Really nice zoo. I generally stay away from zoos in Japan. Either they're crowded or they're kind of small, and just I'm not too into it. But this one was fairly spacious, and it was a nice stay. So I don't regret going up to see that. So yeah, that took like an hour and a half, maybe, or like 2 hours. It was a decent length bus ride up through very countryside Hokkaido, which Hokkaido is already quite Hokkaido is known for being very wide and expansive, because there's not a lot of city centers, right? Like Sapporo is, I believe Sapporo is the main city, and then there's a lot of farmland and all that. So just driving through a lot of farmland and just empty kind of areas, which is nice in and of itself. It's interesting. But then after that, after the zoo, we went over to Aoi Ike in BA, which Aoi Ike literally means like a blue pond. So because of, I guess it's like the minerals or whatever, the stuff in the water, it looks very blue. So it's a very Instagrammy kind of place to visit. You get some nice blue water pictures. You can stand in front of it and look all pretty. And they have a blue soft serve ice cream, which is the ramune flavor, which is this like soda lemonade flavor that's popular with candy and the drinks. And they had like blue stuff, like a whole bunch of blue stuff. So it was nice. Very, very touristy. That's like 100% touristy, but it was still nice. And then we passed by Furano as well. So Furano is known for the lavender fields. And unfortunately, we were quite early. Well, we were about a month early, because I think the lavenders bloom in July roughly. So we didn't really get to see lavenders, but it was still, we went to this like big open field, and there were some other flowers, and just walked around. It was a nice place. And that was kind of the main thing for Sapporo. And then went to Tokyo, and mainly Tokyo, is some shopping. Actually, here's there were, I guess, two main interesting things that I kind of came across that were new to me. One was Okubo. So I had never been to the Okubo, Shin Okubo area. That area is known for being very like Korea. It's basically like a little Koreatown. There's a lot of Korean restaurants. There's like a lot of K-pop stuff, like K-pop merch stores, and Korean cosmetics, and like all these stores blaring K-pop, and K-pop kind of like shows. Like there's actually sometimes free like K-pop shows. So there will be these groups, like the boy groups, all that come over, and there may be like new kind of unknown groups, and they do shows in these like little theaters. And there's what's it called? There's a street called Ikemen Dori, and Ikemen means like a good-looking guy, like a handsome guy. So there's a bunch of like K-pop stuff along that street, and like little food stalls, the convenience stores, the fast food places. A lot of them have Korean clerks, so you can tell by the accent that they're Korean. They speak Japanese, but a couple that I interacted with had very, very thick Korean accents. So it's kind of a refreshing thing. Like I know Okubo, I had heard that it had this kind of Korean town reputation in the past, but I had never been there. And I have been to Korea, like quite a few years ago. So, it was a fun trip, and I love that. I loved my time in Korea. And then this kind of surprise. So what happened was we ended up choosing a really cheap hotel, and it was in Okubo. And so we ended up in Okubo kind of by accident. So I wasn't expecting it. It was kind of not on my mind. And they go, oh, yeah. Okay. So it was really fun, really interesting. We also ended up going to a 24-hour like Chinese restaurant. It's like open 24 hours a day. The clerks, everyone was just Chinese. Like the menus were like in Chinese. Like there was a sign outside, like looking for part-time employees. That was all in Chinese. So it was like a hardcore, just Chinese run. Like it wasn't like what's that called, like Royal Host or anything like that. Like these Japanese run Chinese restaurants. It was like pure on like Chinese restaurant. great food. And yeah, I went to a couple of Korean places as well in Okubo. Just great food. So I know if you're going to Japan, it's not because you're looking to experience Korea, but nevertheless, it was a fun surprise, and it was a cheap place to stay, and it's very, very easy to get to other places from there. I think it was, what was the train line? It was the Honsen, I think is what it's called. The Chuo Honsen, I think is what it's called. Geez, it's been like 2 weeks since I was there. So yeah, but it's I think it's like one station away from Shinjuku, and just really easy to get to other places. Then Shin Okubo is on the Yamanote line. So yeah, once you're on the Yamanote line, you can go to all the big places, right? Like the well-known places, Akihabara, Tokyo, Shibuya, Harajuku, and it's not that far away. So it's actually a pretty interesting place. I will just let you know, there are kind of some like, what can I put it? Like shady areas and back alleys and all that kind of stuff. And the hotel that we stayed at was like super like tiny. It was like this loft layout, but it definitely seems like it wasn't supposed to be like a loft layout. And then there was this sign. So it was like an Airbnb kind of thing, right? And there was this sign posted in Japanese that said like, if somebody asks you who you are, just tell them you're a friend of the owner. So obviously, either this whole Airbnb kind of thing is not allowed in this little like tiny apartment block. It wasn't even like in a building. It was just like a one floor kind of thing, like a walk up, I guess was what you would call it. But yeah, really kind of rundown area. But anyway, I guess either that was not allowed or kind of frowned upon. So the person running this apartment, which they called a hotel, but it was only like one room, was requesting that people like don't divulge that they're running this as an Airbnb kind of place. They're just saying like, oh yeah, he's my friend. So I was joking around that this person that asks you like, hey, who are you, must think like this guy must have a lot of friends, right? So, I don't know, but yeah, there's some cheap places to stay in the Okubo area. It's definitely not luxurious, but it is an interesting little district with some good Korean food. I went to a really good place. That I would definitely go back to again. But anyway, yeah, that was one little, in a way, a discovery, a first for me. And then another thing that I went to was Team Lab, what's it called? Planets. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with Team Lab. They are kind of like this creative studio. They do like interactive, fun, interesting art exhibitions, interactive exhibitions, I guess you would say, implementing technology and just visuals and just like modern AR and this kind of stuff, like I don't know, projection mapping and all this kind of fun, interesting stuff, right? So actually a few years ago, I think it was the last time I was in Japan in 2019, I actually tried to go to one of their exhibitions in Odaiba, the like man-made island off the coast of Tokyo, where there's a bunch of malls and entertainment stuff, right? There's the big not one of one, the life-size Gundam was first put there. I know there's other life-size Gundams now, but the first one was constructed in Odaiba. There was a display in 2019. I forgot what it was called, but it was a Team Lab something in Odaiba. And I tried to go there with my co-host from Ichimon Japan, the other podcast that I host. But unfortunately, the day that we went was their day off, their Teikubi. So we ended up not being able to go. But this time around, I went to their new one. And thankfully, we were able to get reservations. By the way, if you are trying to get to these, big exhibitions that are fairly well known, you often have to make reservations. I mean, often they do have tickets available at the door, unless it's like a super crowded like weekend or day of the week, like a, not day of the week, like a, what's it called, like a holiday. Often they do have tickets available at the door, but you are risking it if you don't make a reservation. So if you are interested in going to something like Team Lab Planet or something like the Ghibli Museum or some of these other high demand exhibitions and tourist attractions, always check about whether they are offering pre-sale, like reserve tickets, because that is the best way to ensure that you don't, end up there and you can't get in. It really would suck to, go on a 40-minute train ride and end up there and you can't even get in. So we did make our reservations. I think it was around 3,500 yen. So you could argue, that is a little bit pricey. But it's still a fun, unique experience. So this Team Lab Planets thing is basically you walk through a series of rooms and each has a different theme. There are some rooms with water in them. Like there's this one room that has like around knee-high water, and there are like these fish that are being projected onto the water and that you can kind of interact with. Like if you kick them, like the image, right, they will like disappear, they'll go away. So that's kind of a cool, fun, interactive kind of technological thing. And you got to roll up your pants if you're wearing pants. And it's just really fun, unique. This in the middle, of Tokyo, right? You get to experience these kinds of things. There's another one where you walk through these like cushy kind of floor that your legs like sink in, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere. So it's just just fun, totally out of the ordinary sort of thing. There's like all these, there's another room with like lights and crystals, and another one with like flowers, and it's like looking into the infinite beyond. Like I suck at explaining this stuff, but there are plenty of videos on YouTube if you're curious. Again, it's called Team Lab Planets. They do allow photography and videos in the whatever the exhibition. So like I said, there are YouTube videos. So if you're curious, check it out. I mean, the whole experience probably took less than an hour. So in that sense, again, it is a little bit pricey, but hey, if you're earning dollars, that's actually more like 20 something dollars probably. So it's not that bad. But again, it's like this interesting display in the middle of the city. Where was it? I think it was Shin Toyosu. I think it was Shin Toyosu. It was either Toyosu. I think you had to go like one station from Toyosu on the Yuri Kamome line, I believe. Double check that, of course. But again, it's a fun display. And if you're looking for something a little bit different and maybe something that is not a permanent display sort of thing, right? Like go check it out. I would recommend it if you're willing to pay that much for it. And then I think I said that there were two things that I mentioned, that kind of surprised me that were notable about Tokyo, but I actually, there was one more, even though it's technically not Tokyo. But while I was in Tokyo, I went to Fuji-Q Highland. So I took a bus with a friend and we went down to Fuji-Q, which is this well-known theme park in Japan. It's it's near Mount Fuji. I forget exactly which prefecture it's in. Maybe Shizuoka, Yamanashi, maybe Yamanashi, I think. But anyway, it's near Mount Fuji. You can see Mount Fuji from the park. And what's special about this park is that I think it's the most famous park in Japan in terms of roller coasters. And I absolutely love roller coasters. And unfortunately, I have been cursed with the... I guess I have a curse that a lot of people in my life don't like to ride roller coasters. But finally, I found a friend that was able to go with me, and I went with him and his daughter, and they both love roller coasters. So we went and we rode like all of them. And there was one that was closed, the what's it called? Dodonpa. I wanted to ride that one. That's one of the famous ones, and I wanted to ride it, but unfortunately it was closed due to maintenance. But that's okay, because we got to ride every single other coaster. And these are some of the most intense roller coasters that I've ever ridden. What's it called? Let's see. There was Takabisha. That one was just awesome. Absolutely awesome. It goes down like a 121 degree drop. So it's like beyond 90 degrees. Like, it's so good. And there was the other one that rolls around that I can't remember the name of right now. What's it called? Eijanaika. That one, like the seats like roll on a horizontal axis as you are moving around as well. It was so good. Fujiyama was like a sit down coaster. Like it doesn't loop or anything, but it's super fast, really intense steel coaster, but kind of it's got that sit down, not the like over the shoulder kind of like what's it called, the ones where your leg dangle, not like that. So And then we rode a bunch of other ones too. But those were kind of the three highlights for me. And these are seriously some of the most intense ones that I've ever ridden. I've been to Busch Gardens in Tampa Bay and Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, all that. Unfortunately, I haven't been to Cedar Point. I know I'm getting into very roller coaster like aficionado territory here. So sorry if that's not interesting to you. But if you are into coasters, I totally recommend going to Fuji-Q. Actually, because it was the summer, right? I was in June, and the summer is the like scary season, so they have haunted houses around Japan, and apparently the haunted house that they have at Fuji-Q is the longest in Japan. It takes like 50 minutes to go through, but it costed an extra 4,000 yen for 4 people. So in total, 4 people can go in for 4,000 yen, but it costs for the all you can ride, as many times as you want, like pass for the park. I think it costs 6,000 yen for the adults, if I remember correctly. Plus, I think it costs like 3,000 yen for the bus trip from Tokyo, from Shinjuku over to the park. So, I mean, that's not the admission, right? That's separate fee, but just so you're aware. So the park itself costed, I believe, 6,000 yen. So if you want to get in the what's it called? The haunted house, the Obakeyashiki, that would be an extra 4,000 yen. But if you split it up with 4 people, that would be 1,000 yen per person. So in that regard, I guess it's not that bad. But if you're by yourself or it's only 2 people, then it might feel a little bit pricier. So we didn't end up going just because it felt as like extra money and we didn't really care. We were really there for the roller coasters. But if you are into that sort of thing, you might want to check that out in the summer. Now, here's the thing that you got to keep in mind. I'm sure that if you go in July on a weekend or on a holiday, Fuji-Q must be absolutely packed and you're probably going to not be able to ride that many coasters or whatever it is you're trying to get on. The park does not seem that big. It's relatively compact compared to something like I don't know, Disney World or Universal Studios, like in Florida where I used to live. So I'm most familiar with that. But again, the rides are great. It's just that, yeah, if you're going on a crowded day, you're going to end up waiting maybe, who knows, an hour, 2 hours to get on one of these coasters, which in a sense, it's totally worth it. But yeah, the park is going to close, right? You can't be there 24 hours. So there's a limited amount of time. Thankfully, we were there in June, which is rainy season, but the day was just totally wonderful. No rain, not overly hot, and just, not crowded. I think the longest we waited for a ride must have been like 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes at the most, but probably more like 30 minutes. For some, it may have been like 20 minutes or less. And so we got to ride everything. We got there around 10 to 11 a.m., maybe even close to 11 a.m. And we had to leave by like 5-ish because the park, I think, closes at 5, at least on that day. It was a weekday. And we did stop to have lunch. So maybe took like a 30-40 minute break in between everything. And we still got to ride everything except Dodonpa, which was the one that was closed for maintenance. So unfortunately, there's that. But, we rode some of the lesser, I don't know, like not the famous ones too. We rode the main coasters, but we also got on some of the other like stuff that spins around and whatever. So, but yeah, one of the best roller coasters experiences in my life. Maybe there's better ones out there. I'm not going to say that there isn't. There probably is, but for me personally, like I would recommend that to anybody that enjoys roller coasters. So go check out Fuji-Q if you have a chance. But again, try to go on a weekday if you can. Just, make your schedule work because you're not going to get such a good experience. I think if you go on a weekend or on a holiday, you're going to be, stuck out there maybe in the heat and waiting, 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and you're not going to be happy because you're going to be wanting to get on more rides, but you're not going to be able to. So just keep that in mind. All right. And then we went back to Fukuoka after that. I met some people in Tokyo as well. But again, maybe that's a story for another day. Did a bunch of shopping and now I am back. So that are some of the highlights of my trip, I guess you could say. There's a couple of other things that I may discuss at some other point. Maybe even bring up one funny thing that happened in a future episode of Ichimon Japan with my co-host Ryan. I think we can maybe do something with what happened. But Again, if you're on the fence about going to Japan, if you're thinking, oh, but I don't want to spend the money, or should I go now or should I wait till next year? Like blah, blah, blah. If you're a little bit worried, of course, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. I'm not telling you to spend money you don't have and to, go into debt. But if you can spare the money and this is something that you've been wanting to do, I think that this is a wonderful opportunity. Just again, if you're earning dollars, like this is one of the best, most affordable times to go to Japan. There's a lot of tourism that has come back. Like it's really geared up. A lot of the non-Japanese tourists, like they're going around Japan, they're coming into the country. But I really don't think that it's, at the levels where it was prior to Corona and whatever, the lead up to the Olympics, right? Like that was like peak tourism season. So I haven't looked at the numbers, but I highly suspect that the numbers are quite a bit down. So just in every aspect, I would assume like even hotels, right? Like it's probably cheaper and there's less crowding. It's easier to get around and just everything is cheaper. So if you're looking to visit Japan, now is a great time. Maybe not July again, because that is peak season. Maybe not August. That is kind of still peak season. But if you can wait maybe till the fall, that would be probably a very good time to go. And then if you're looking to study abroad or something like that, maybe this would be a good time as well. Now, for the people that are looking to work over there, if you're going to be earning in money in yen, yeah, I'm sorry, buddy. That's not going to be good. Yeah, like people on Jet right now, they're taking a blow right now. So I'm sorry. I'm very sorry about that. Like when I was over there on Jet, I was the exchange rate was really good for me. So I was able to get quite a bit of dollars. I was exchanging money into dollars on the regular. So unfortunately, it's the other way around right now. But nevertheless, I mean, the cost of living in Japan is generally speaking lower than in many other places, especially Hawaii. So yeah, you're going to be earning probably more than enough money to get by in Japan. It's just that when you come back to the US, maybe, you won't be too happy about how the exchange rate. But for tourism, yeah, I do think that right now is one of the best times to go check out Japan. The fall probably would be quite good because it's not as hot as the summer, and the summer can get quite hot. So just you can wait till it cools down a little bit, and it's a little bit of probably a cheaper season in terms of plane tickets. So that's it. That's my 2023 summer trip to Japan. And of course, I will be back eventually. Maybe even later this year. I don't know. We'll see. I have something I want to talk about in a future episode of Japan Station. It will be another solo episode, but I will be trying to release one soon, maybe even sooner than usual. But of course, I will be having other episodes coming soon with the regular kind of interview style format. So if you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. I know this is not the typical format, and maybe listening to me ramble on and on and on about Japan and my recent trip in a rather unstructured way won't appeal to everyone. But if you're still here, I do appreciate it. Thank you. And I'll be back soon enough with more Japan-focused content and maybe a very interesting, unique announcement for something that I will be working on in the very, very near future. So we'll leave it at that. And hey, go find your miniature pony!
Just do it!